Hey viewers, you are welcome to another series of Obisco tutorial. Now today we'll be talking about calculus. Now under calculus we'll be looking at differentiation, and in differentiation we're looking at the method of first principle. Now here is a typical example that we use to show you how to solve problems using first principle. Y, if you're given a problem like this, y is equals to x plus 1 over x. First thing you do is you say let there be a change in both x and y. That will be y plus change in y equals to x plus change in x plus 1 over x plus change in x. Now, at this point, you don't really have much to simplify or factorize it. So the next step will be you make your change in y the subject of the equation. That will be change in y will be equals to x plus change in x plus 1 over x plus change in x minus y. Now, so instead of making change in y our subject of the equation. So the next thing we do is we substitute the equivalent value for what? Our y from the equation. So our change in y will now be equals to x plus change in x plus 1 over x plus change in x minus x plus 1 over x. Recall that our y is x plus 1 over x. So let's open the bracket. Our change in y will now be equals to x plus change in x plus 1 over x plus change in x minus x minus 1 over x. So at this point, positive x here we cancel out with negative x. So this and this goes. So we now have change in y equals to change in x plus 1 over x plus change in x minus 1 over x. So looking at this point, we have two fractions. So make these two fractions a unity by finding their LCM. Then use it to multiply what we have in the numerator. So that will be change in y equal to change in x plus the LCM of the numerator is x into bracket x plus change in x. Now change in x comes here, or if we divide this by x plus change in x, we have x left. So x multiplied by 1 will give us what? X. Now, when we divide this with x, we will have x plus change in x left. Then x plus change in x multiplying by minus 1, we will now be having minus into bracket x plus change in x. So we now have change in y equals to change in x plus x minus change in x all over x into bracket x plus change in x. So at this point, x positive x cancels our negative x. So what we now have here is change in y equals to change in x minus change in x here all over. Okay, let us use this to just open the bracket. This times this x times x will give us x squared. X times change in x will give us what? Give us plus x change in x. So from this, at this point, what we do next is we divide both sides by change in x. So now change in y over change in x will be equals to change in x over change in x minus change in x over s squared plus s change in s. Remember we say we divide. So this side we can't have two division sign. So we introduce a multiplication sign and inverse of the, so the reciprocal of the denominator will ensue. That will be times 1 over change in x. So at this point, change in s we cancel out with change in x here. Change in s here we cancel out with change in x here. We have 1. So we now have our change in y over change in x will give us 1 minus 1 all over s squared plus s change in x. Now from this point we take limit as change in s tends to 0. Okay, let's continue from this side. Taking limit as change in s tends to 0. That is to say our change in y and change in s will now be equal to dy over what? ds. So that will be